Hello. Hello.
So hello and welcome to everyone. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful to be connected with all of you. I think I may have met everybody who's in the room right now, but just to be sure, and for anyone who may view this later, I will briefly introduce myself, saying just I'm Teresa Blumenstein. I am the Global Coordinator of the Justice Coalition of Religious, and that is a group of 22 NGOs who have accreditation at the United Nations and are representing there in that global conversation the voices, experiences, and wisdom of Catholic sisters, brothers, and priests from around the world. And during this meeting of ours today, we are gathering in the moment in the year, which is the UN Commission on the Status of Women, which is the annual UN conference on gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. So as to mark the occasion of that conference and to further our own goal of bringing in more voices and experiences into that UN conversation, we are having our own open discussion today, specifically for those from the Asia Pacific region, to talk specifically about whatever aspects of gender equality are most pressing or of greatest concern at this time to those of you who are in the Asia Pacific region. And so we have a couple kind of questions that we will just respond to together and exchange ideas about. So nice, big, broad, open food for thought. And those two areas in which we'll have our discussion are, first, what are the areas of deepest concern for women and girls, either in your country or in your community? And the other is, what small victories or progress toward gender equity have you witnessed in your country or community in recent years? And I'll just point out as we begin our conversation that we say in your country or community, it could be a concern on any level, but you need not be speaking for the entire country. You don't need to feel that you have to be an expert on the experiences of women and girls everywhere in your country, which is why we can also speak on the communal level. So wherever your experience is, whatever your level of expertise, you're welcome to speak on that level. And if you wish to speak even, broader terms than the country, that's okay too. Whatever experience you bring to the conversation is welcome. So we'll begin today by just giving ourselves a few minutes to think on these questions before we dive into some of our sharing.
Teresa, it may be useful to have a round of introductions, even if we know some, we don't know all in the group. And so it may be good to give, because then we'll know from which part of the country. I think most of us are Indians here, which part of the country we are from, and and then proceed.
Sure. That will be most welcome. And since we're a small enough number, there's no issue of that taking a ton of time either. So I'll pause the screen sharing for a minute and just invite everyone to, one by one, we'll do a little bit of introduction, tell us who you are, and if you're a member of a congregation, I think everyone here is, or working with some NGO, then you can tell us which group you're working with, and as Brunel suggested, let us know where you are in the world, and I think within India in everyone's case except for mine. So maybe we could begin with Clara.
Odisha. Presently, I am at Cuttack. I am also practicing in the High Court of Odisha. Thank you.
Great to see you again, Clara.
Mhm.
And then to Manisha.
I'm Manisha Gonsalves. I'm an RSCJ, Religious of the Sacred Heart, and I'm in Mumbai, in a place called Malad, Malavani Malad, where I am into full-time pastoral ministry at St. Anthony's Church. And what I do is helping in the building of neighborhood communities, as well as a counselor, psychological counselor, that I'm available to people of all ages.
Great. Thanks for being here, Manisha.
Welcome.
And next we'll go to Brunel.
I'm Vernelle D'Souza. I am with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Bombay, where I teach at the Center for Health and Mental Health School of Social Work. And I'm also one of the coordinators for JCoR India, West India, and involved in a lot of civil liberties and human rights work. And also co-convening the Jan Swasthya Abhiyan, which is the local chapter of the Global People's Health Movement.
Thanks, Brunel. And go next to Nida.
Thanks. I'm Anita, based in Bangalore, in Karnataka. I'm the South India coordinator for JCoR. Other than that, I consult with the Norwegian Human Rights Fund on Women in Work. That's the thematic. And again, since I've been in this sector for about 35 years now, I'm part of several citizens' initiatives around gender justice, trade union work, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. And now we'll go to Rita.
I'm Rita Pinto. I belong to the Society of the Sacred Heart. And I'm at present, of course, I'm from India, but at present I'm at New York attending the CSW67. And it's been a very wonderful week. I'm looking forward to the second week and happy to be part of this meeting on Asia Pacific. On gender equality in the Asia Pacific region. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rita. And finally, Sister Philomena.
Hello. Good evening. I am only just not even a month. I am transferred to Northeast Manipur. I was in Orissa. Last time when we had the meeting in Konchavindi, I was there part of it. So unfortunately or fortunately, I am on transfer and I have come here. I'll be working with women and children and their development. And also, and in this part of the area, there are a lot of discriminations. Gender discriminations are also taking place. So I have just begun to work. That's all about me. Thank you.
Great. And a daughter of charity, yes?
Yes, I belong to the Congregation of the Daughters of Charity of Vincent de Paul. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for being here, all of you. I'm looking forward to
Thank
what
you.
each has to share. So just to get us centered in what we would like to say in this conversation, we'll just have very brief opening prayer and a few pieces of art on the screen to inspire us. And the art that we will see is works of a sister named Susan Daly from Australia, who is a member of the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And she created these works of art specifically for this Commission on the Status of Women and responding to the specific theme as she saw it and as it inspired her, which of course the theme for this year is the relationship between technological innovation, digital education, and gender equality. So several different threads kind of running through many of the events happening these couple of weeks. But we don't need to limit ourselves to that in our conversation. In fact, it's something of our goal as members of civil society at the UN to not only respond when the UN calls to us for input on very specific points and issues, but also to offer a sense or an illustration of the concerns of the world, and in that help shape the priorities and themes that the UN will consider. So we keep our conversation open beyond the boundaries of that theme, and this will be a space for consideration of any issue related to gender at all will be welcome in this conversation. So now we'll bring our art onto the screen. I'll offer us just a very brief prayer to open. To your cross, O God, we come for healing, for you alone can make us whole. We come brokenhearted and broken-spirited, for you alone can make us whole. We come broken in body or in mind, for you alone can make us whole. We come with broken relationships and promises, for you alone can make us whole. We come with broken systems that bind us in structural sin, for you alone can make us whole. To your cross, O God, we come to be made whole, for your love alone can make us like bread, broken for others. Amen. And that prayer is offered as an adaptation from a poem prayer written by David Adam, To Your Cross We Come. So now again, I'll put those 2 points for discussion on the screen, and we'll just take a minute or two quiet to consider how we might like to respond to them today. And so we'll open our conversation. In response, however you feel you'd like to respond in some way to one of these ideas of areas of deep concern or areas of progress or small victory. And no victory too big or small to mention. And again, since we're such a nice, intimate number, invite you to treat this as much as possible as a table where we're all sitting together having a cup of tea, and to speak as you feel called by just unmuting your microphone and sharing your thoughts. And we'll try not to make it too much of a classroom with people being called upon, and try to have just a conversation. So whoever would like to begin, I invite you to get us started.
Will I start with a few comments?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we've since it's the month of March, I think we've had several discussions around women now, and it's kind of warming up to many, many nuances. The main trend that has been coming out in discussions has been that we, as a country in India, we've had a series of legislations which are very anti the working class. When it comes to labor rights, when it comes to religious bias in terms of citizenship, when it comes to public spending on health, education, on social security, all these have been tangibly, substantially decreasing from the hours of work to minimum wages to all kinds of compromises when it comes to the rule. And there's a trend of informalization of worker contracts. All these policies that kind of disempower the working class, disempower women and children much more. So that is certainly an increasing trend, because post-COVID, there was a lot of effort to get entitlements to come together as Citizens Forum, to come together as civil society. And I would say there has been a lot of success in that. And even the first few decades of independent India made several progressive points and policies and laws when it came to equity and justice. But that is all being extremely systematically diluted, and it has become part of the governance. So it is legitimate. We are no longer fighting an unjust criminal. We are fighting an unjust government. And that makes the position of civil society to intervene much more difficult, because then you're under surveillance for your being, credible or not on this basis. And our power to organize is also reduced. So this is a serious concern when it comes to women and children, I feel like. And it's coming up, taking different shapes and forms depending on which community you're working with. If you're working with a Muslim minority or a tribal Christian, the kind of threats people face by the local governance is high. When it comes to the working class in the informal sector, the unorganized sectors in cities and rural areas, it's other kinds of threats. People are asserting in some amounts, but it is not leading to a legitimate change easily. So what we're taking back is actually nibbling back to what we had. And that puts women at a lot of risk. So health centers are not functioning in many places. Medicines are not being given. Scholarships are not being distributed. So things that people had assumed would be there as a safety net are now to be fought for, and sometimes the budget itself is not there. So that's on the positive side. On the negative side. On the positive side, what I see, especially in the last 2-3 years within the women's movement, is that the young, like even within the vulnerable identity campaigns like the Dalit campaigns, the fish workers, the indigenous communities, or even the women's movement at large, there have been many voices unheard, because every movement, every campaign has a learning curve. And now we see a lot more young voices being asserted, difference of opinion being shared. It may be like pleasant or unpleasant when it happens, but I feel this kind of debate is extremely positive in terms of bringing equity within women, equity within the women's movement, equity within collectives, because the model of female women's leadership has also been largely taken from the male leadership. So this feminist assertion, this collectivization, this kind of conversations where we agree to disagree or even disagree to disagree, but at least we are voicing ourselves. I think this brings in equity in a way that might be temporarily painful, but certainly a positive sign in terms of the progress we are making as civil society. Yeah, so I'll stop here and then continue to add. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your sharing and your reflections, Anita. You certainly take broad perspective coming from many areas of engagement. So it's such a valuable perspective on the whole. Anyone else like to add or respond to that?
Yeah, Teresa, I like to share just few words. I've just hardly 2 weeks here in Manipur, and I have visited at least 2 villages, I can say. And here, in the Manipur, it is more of, women dominated, we can say. It's women is given more priority, and they have the more power in the family, and especially most of the communities. And they are the one who is managing the money matters of the family. The other sense, the men are more of, intoxicated. They go for drugs, drinking and other drugs. And then the women, the girl children are given education only, maybe up to +2 or, after degree. They don't send them for higher educations. So that the girls feels that, it is their responsibility to support the family. So once they just pass +2 or something, then they go their own way searching for some job to support the family. But whereas the boys are given more opportunities to go for higher studies. So yeah, that's all I just want to share from my little experience. Thank you.
I would like to share. Actually, when I come to situation of Odisha, like I do see in some of the villages, they are the first generation literate people. Like the children are, their parents are not literate. Also, there are villages also where even the children are not going to the school because there are no facilities. And then there is increased rate of rape in Odisha. Like you can find on everyday basis, like you find especially tribal dominated villages, because in those towns, rape of this tribal girls, and which is not reported in the media or no action has been taken. Another one thing is that because there is so many tribal groups, they still keep on to child marriage. Like in spite of we taking recourse to police, informing the police and separating them, nothing works, because they will always tell us this is our tradition. So that way it is very difficult to change the grassroots level status of women. And because when they are already 14, 15, they have already another child to take care. So accordingly, life expectancy also is very small. Very short. And men marrying like double of girls have to marry double of their age men. Like 14-year-old child is given to a 60-year-old. Even today, it is prevalent in Odisha. And secondly, coming to the towns, like, of course, the girls are being educated, but if I since I'm working in High Court, I see like hardly few of us in the High Court as women lawyers. Maybe some 15 of us, when there are men of some 600. That is the representation of women in the even judiciary. We have some 27 judges, and there is only one women judge. Same thing is with the advocates, and I feel this is same in all the departments in Odisha. And the other thing is that in Odisha, we have been telling the girls about empowerment. But whereas men are not told to empower themselves, because especially in Odisha, what happens is girls are educated. They're educated, they study graduation, post-graduation, they also get into jobs. But then mostly the tribals, they don't get a boy of their education. Like boys after 10th, they are drop out, or before that they drop out, then they go to for a like religious priests and sisters also used to offer them this vocational trainings, ITI, and they get into a driver's job or plumber or masonry, some such jobs. Whereas these girls happen to pass out +2 and then went for nursing, or they got into the job of teacher or lecturer. And then those such girls are not finding a boy in their society. And then they remained as not getting married, and they are looked down in the society. They are having separate story to tell. There is discomfort in them. They can't marry somebody who is not educated. That kind of society situation is prevailing. At the same time, when we look at other areas like health, though reproductive health, like though we have so many hospitals, but government hospitals, but when the women reach there, pregnant women reach there, there are no facilities. There are, even today, there are so many maternity deaths taking place, and which are unnoticed. Like it's like though we have so many schemes in our state, but many of the times these schemes are not reaching to the people in the grassroots. So there is a struggle this way. So I want to say that's it.
Okay, can I speak now?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I know this is a very hot topic at the moment at the CSW67, and I've been listening to so many speakers, even parliamentarians, and everyone's talking so much about it. But as women, we know really what the situation of our country, particularly in India, the situation of women. I feel across India, gender equality results in unequal opportunities, and it impacts on the lives of both the genders. Statistically, it is, of course, as we have heard over and over again, in all over the world, and so it's almost the same. You can say the girls who are the most disadvantaged. And in India, one of the concerns that I feel I have is safety concerns. Women are threatened by various acts. We have the feticide, domestic violence, what have you. I mean, you can name all these which happen all over the world: rape, trafficking, forced prostitution, honor killings, sexual harassment at workplace, and then political participation. Women are, even I've heard so many of these Lok Sabha, what you call it, the parliament meetings. Women are always silenced. They are not allowed to speak their mind, and they don't have a voice, and they're denied the opportunities to even express the truth, which the government, as Anita said, government, they're biased. They're very much biased when it comes to women. And even representation in decision-making bodies, and women are hardly you will hardly see many women in that. When you talk about the church, the Indian church too, we know what we are experiencing in the church at the moment when it comes to a lot of church abuse, the scandals that are going on among the bishops and priests, the sexual abuse, and yet women, there are many organizations, I think Brunel and Anita are part of all these women's groups. And, the voices of women are silenced. The religious groups, women who are part of these, whenever it comes to any meetings or any dialogue, somehow the voice of the woman is not heard. And the patriarchy very much exists, the norms that exist all over the world, almost the same. Restrictions that are there because of women, whether it be particularly the Muslim minority, Muslim community. And one thing that I talk about in education, because it's here in the CSW, we're talking about girls' education. And in India, we have now the Prime Minister's schemes that he talks about, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. I mean, teach the child and save the child. But these are all lip kind of services and lip, slogans, and which really don't make sense when you talk about the experience that we go through, and particularly the girl child, particularly in the rural, the grassroots, because I am very much involved with girls and women in the grassroots, at the grassroots level. And I must say on the other side, on the positive side, yes, I think I've already heard someone mention that the voices of the youth, the young, they are the future, we say. And therefore, they are trying to assert themselves. They are trying to make their voices heard. I'm part of a youth group when it comes to climate action at the moment. This is one of the very kind of crucial issue that is touching the whole world. And the youth are really taking a lot of initiative in this movement, which we have started, called Youth Beats for Climate Change. And but of course, this girl, who's one of the leaders, I would say, in the group, has had to face a lot of opposition, but she is going ahead because she's a girl, and yet she is not afraid. She's very courageous, and of course, I've been trying to give her a lot of encouragement, and that's why she is now representing at different meetings at the national level. Right from a little village town that we come from, she has reached even these national meetings and there's a group that she is part of. And so I would say there are good sides, but of course the dark side seems to stand out, in the country with regard to girls and women.
Thanks, Rita. Could you repeat again the name of that group? Did you say Youth Beats?
Youth Beats for Climate. Youth Beats for Climate.
Okay.
May I speak now?
Yes, go ahead, Manisha.
Well, Rita has stolen all my words and my thoughts, and perhaps it's because we come from the same city of Mumbai, and our backgrounds are similar, though she has had more experience in the villages than I have. Most of my experience is based on Mumbai and my experience as a pastoral worker, as well as at the grassroots, as well as at the training programs and so on. But to answer the first question, what grips me most of all as an area of concern is the safety of our women. In some places, it's kind of in a raw condition, in the sense that I don't work in the villages, but I learn from the newspapers and media. And what shocked me more recently, I'm taking some examples for all these things, was this young girl, a young teenager, something like 14 or something, who'd gone to work in the fields, and she was gang raped there. Gang raped, and she screamed and shouted, but before any help reached her, she was gang raped, and then they burnt her body, and there was no trace of anything after that. And when the family went to plead, they kind of ignored them because they were a poor family from a lower caste and all that. So this is typical of what's happening in the villages even now. This is recent. When it comes to the city, still there is a lot of fear if you're a girl child to go out late because late at night. And here the girls mind it very much, because when I deal with youth, they say, my brother is treated differently from me. Why is that? And again, I bring an example. In the last day of the girl child, which was 8th September, one group of our youth put up a skit. And I was quite shocked, because I thought today things had changed. I mean, this is what we hear over the ages, but no, they were really, feeling when they spoke about this. And they said, they showed us, they depicted through the skit how the boy, the brother, was treated, in a kind of very, what shall I say, free, was given certain different norms for behavior and punishment or whatever from the girls. For example, the girls were expected to do all the housework. The boys were sitting with mobiles and relaxing and such like, besides that, besides going out with friends and so on. Of course, there's a reason for that. But the norm is that the girls should be just seen and not heard. And it's okay, boys can express their opinion, girls need to just be quiet. This is quite rampant even in Mumbai. You might be surprised to hear this. And then I want to take one more example that typifies what's happening, which I'm dealing with right now as a counselor as well as in the pastoral work. This girl is a Tamilian, I would say a lady. She's 26 years old, and she's been working all her life because she has to support the family. She thinks that she should get whatever, earn the livelihood for the family, though the father is also working as a rickshaw puller, that is a poor man. But however, not so poor. And the wife, or the mother and father, are both working. Mother is a domestic worker. But this lady is also working, and she gave up her studies. She has not passed even high school. But she's a brilliant girl. What I detect for the last 4 or 5 years I've been with this group. She's really brilliant and very deeply spiritual. So I'm trying to get her educated. And I asked her the other day, and her first thing was, I have to educate my younger brother. So I imagined a younger brother, like 10-year-old or something. And then when I asked her, she said, no, he's 18 years old. And I said, what does he do? He's just sitting at home. And he's not interested in studies. He's not interested in work. He just wants to work part-time as and when. So this typifies, it seems to be a small example, typifies what's happening. And this would have gone on. And then I got the parents to meet me and so on. And I challenged them and I said, do you want her to stay like this? And one of the uncles around said, well, she's going to get married anyway, So I said, you're sure? Then I took the girl aside and she says, no, that's not what I want at all in my life, and so on. Anyway, it's a long story. But what I want to show you here is that you need individual attention. This is the only way I feel. And that also we not know so often. It goes under the carpet. So this is regarding education or further development of our young girls, particularly from the poorer section, who have no one to guide them. And they just go along with the system. Then one more thing I wanted to share about the second point, some hope. I have a neighborhood children's council, and this is before the pandemic. We used to have regular sessions and discussions, and I treated them very maturely, though they were just, let's say, 10-year-olds to 15, 16-year-olds. And once I asked them to share with us, what kind of India do they dream of? And I was surprised to hear many say, an India where there's no gender discrimination. So I said, wow, those are big words. What do they mean? And they gave me examples. I was shocked because this is the neighborhood in which I'm living. I never knew that there was so much discrimination. Outwardly, you don't see it. And I come from a home, fortunately, this is years ago, and we were treated equally, boys and girls. And so I wasn't even aware of this till once I started the ministry and so on. So there are areas of hope, but it's going to be a long journey, arduous journey. But there are things like, yesterday I was attending a Women's Day program, and the whole thing was on entertainment. Everybody enjoyed themselves. And I said, one thing missing, we had nobody to give us an inspirational speech or say anything regarding the realities where I know our women, most of them suffering badly, and where they are made to do all the work in the home. And a lot of our men here around the neighborhood, they're just sitting idly, even after the age of 50, which in India is supposed to be getting old. So, for the men, it's old. For the women, they work up to 60, 70, doesn't matter. So those kind of unequal categories and ways of judging people. I just want to bring to your notice, I was reading the Examiner. This is a weekly that comes in Mumbai, and there's a beautiful article by Miss Jean Saldana, and it's called Equity is the Key to Equality, based on the international theme for this year for Women's Day. And it highlights all the different, I don't want to go through it, but the different areas which we in India are grappling with. And again, a very balanced article, which gives you also areas of hope and few steps taken by our government, but facts and figures that still shock us. Like Rita was talking about the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao initiative. The child sex ratio is still imbalanced and so on. You know, like they're saying in Maharashtra, that's the state in which we are, for every 889 girls, you have 1,000 boys. And so they can't find marriage partners and so on. So these are some areas. I'd let somebody else speak and then come in maybe later. Thank you.
If Nandini wishes to speak, she can go ahead, and after Nandini, I would like to share a few thoughts.
Okay, so Nandini, if you're here, if you're listening, so we are just responding openly as each one desires to either of two areas or both, if you like, which is to say, what do you see as some of the deepest concerns related to gender in your own country or community? Or you might like to speak on where you've seen some progress or small victories related to gender in your country or community. So if you would like to respond to either of those questions or to something that you've heard said by others on the call, you're most welcome to share.
Yes, Tisha ma'am. Good evening. Yes, I heard that. I was out, just I came and I heard mom's speaking. It was very heart touching. And I am not going to speak about the question, but what I heard. So I too like experience. I was working the NGOs, no. So 3 years if I was working, so women's are little. It was the gender, no. When we see there is a difference is there, but as time is now this technology, all this coming up on the many media. So we are now, I feel that equally. Some moral we are now, like, you know, we are not putting down that much, but we are coming up. But still, again, there is women are treated little like no, we are not equally treated many places and all. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So
we
this is
did. We
my
heard you. And Nandini, if you could also tell us where you are and if you're a member of a congregation, to say which group you are.
Ma'am, I am in Odisha. Do you remember we had Janavikas Nadis Pastor
Yes.
Center we had with this Justine?
Yes,
It is
yes.
program. Yes, that time I had to come. Now I'm still Nandini.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am, because I'm not getting that here now video and this together, it won't work out, please. That's why. And suddenly it goes up also. Yes.
Don't
Thank
worry.
you, ma'am. Go ahead. Yes, yes. Thank you for
Great
giving
to
me
hear
opportunity.
from you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Okay. Go on.
Okay, so and then Brunel, you wish to share something also?
Yeah, so I've just noted down because a few points which I would like to share. And, you know, there are both, you know, successes, or at least what you say, moments of hope. And there are also things that, you know, need to be, you know, that can be depressing or challenging and need to be, you know, need sustained action. So one is coming, since the theme is, I think, gender equality and digital access. That's the UN theme. And I think a lot of the world and governments, and even our government, keeps talking about, you know, digital access, digitization, And the reality remains that women have very poor access to digital technology. And we saw this during the pandemic, but this has been independent of the pandemic also, that even the mobile phone or a smart, even if you take something as basic as that men will own smartphones and women will own the most rudimentary phones. And this is true even of places like Bombay. So many organizations now are moving towards, what you say, app-based solutions or interventions and digital technology in order to, create awareness on MCH and other things, mother and child health. But, a lot of this gets wasted because women really don't have access to these technologies. So also, how do we create and move towards, understand the gendering of technology, and how do we move towards creating, technology which is more equitable and empowering? So that's one thing. Now in India, actually, as everyone was talking, I was also noting down, and I want, on one hand we have this, which Anita and Rita and others also alluded to, the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign, which translates as, save the child and educate the child. But how does this then translate in an environment of, Hindutva majoritarianism? Because at the same time, this government is kind of, maybe at the state level, like in Karnataka, made the scarf that the Muslim girl wears as such, basically politicize that in such a major way for electoral gains. And this will actually take, prevent maybe a number of Muslim girls from going into schools, from schools or higher education. So you can talk one particular rhetoric, okay, but then gender also operates at its intersections. And how does then this translate in terms of government policy for groups that are kind of othered in this country is also what needs to be looked at. Then you also have, we've had very shocking acquittals of gang rapes. One was of Bilkis Banu, and what Manisha spoke about, the Hathras case, where gang rapes that were kind of, where those convicted or sentenced or who were in trial, now the nitty-gritties of these things, but women who have been essentially, so how the bodies of that women itself, the category of women itself is not a monolith category. It has, layers and intersections, and how if you are a Dalit woman or girl, or if you're a Muslim woman or girl, and today even probably if you're a Christian woman or girl, the state, the judicial system is going to engage with you very differently, and that how justice may be a far cry. Then this entire issue of love jihad, which is happening, and unfortunately, which some Christian groups have also joined the bandwagon, especially. Now, the issue of love jihad, actually, it's propaganda. Love jihad means that how Muslim men are falling in love and marrying Hindu women or Christian women in order to convert them to Islam. Okay, and how this love jihad narrative is actually about, attacking the right of women to choose and whom they will want to marry, to choose the faith communities they may want to belong to. So I may be Christian, I may want to adopt Islam, Islam, or I may want to adopt Hinduism. And can we recognize that women have the agency and the right to do that, these are all constitutional provisions? And how is this, this thing? So this love jihad is also, women's autonomy for choosing their life partners. And now in Maharashtra, we have a big drama which is going on. Unfortunately, the Christian community and church groups have really not engaged with this issue, despite almost in Bombay itself, 25% of Christians have interfaith marriages. So there is great mobilization and a policy directive that the state government is going to gather information about all interfaith marriages, and then reach out to the women and their families to see if they require any state intervention, especially if there is so-called oppression. Now, this is an invasion into the right to privacy. It's an, and if the state really wants to do something, they can definitely do it to address violence against women, and violence against women that cuts across all issues. But you see grants and, funding for programs or to address violence against women kind of decreasing, or being used or repurposed, but you see the state now interfering into family spaces, into private spaces, and this thing. The other issue is scholarships. So on one hand, you're talking about this thing, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. I mean, save the girl and educate the girl, but you're withdrawing scholarships for marginalized communities. So both for minorities and for SC/ST, OBCs, up to standard 8th, and then minorities even after at the college and university level. Now, this acts as a serious barrier for women who want to get into higher education, or women, or for these scholarships, very nominal, maybe 1,000 rupees a year, but was providing relief to families who are coming from extremely deprived backgrounds. And when families have to make a choice between a girl's education and a boy's education with their limited resources, they are going to privilege boys' education over girls' education. So this is also going to affect this thing. Women's labor participation in India has been reducing for some time now, and so that's something to be extremely worried about. So what are the reasons for it? What kind of state and civil society support and organizational support mechanisms, what kind of mechanisms are required to be put in place to ensure that women's participation increases? Then, as also what Anita has spoken about, we're seeing increasing informalization. And when you see informalization happening, you also know that it's women and vulnerable groups who are at the center of this informalization. And this kind of informalization will also lead to greater feminization of poverty. Okay, and when budgets for health, public health kind of decline. Now, Maharashtra, Bombay, you've seen a decline in health budgets. That means, again, there is a gendered access to healthcare, and then women will be kind of more at the receiving end of these kind of changes in policies. Women's reservation, I mean, political participation. There is a bill to push for women's reservation at the Lok Sabha, at the state level. But of course, political parties are not willing to take this forward. And this is probably one space where women elected representatives across party lines tend to agree, despite their ideology that we need to put for greater participation of women. Now, you're also seeing, and what we have been observing in Bombay, and this is something to reflect on, a frightening mobilization of women from the Hindu, from the majority community in with regards to anti-Muslim and anti-Christian, for anti-Muslim and anti-Christian agendas. Let me put it there. There has been massive mobilization in Maharashtra and in Bombay, and this kind of a right-wing agenda actually doesn't augur well even for Hindu women, because this right-wing agenda is not based on egalitarian principles. It's based on, a caste supremacy. It's based on traditional understandings of who a woman is, and that how she should be in the control of her father, her brother, her son, her husband. So it doesn't even augur well for Hindu women. And so these are some of the issues. And when you target minority communities, okay, if you're killing Muslim men, or if you're having anti-Christian, or you're kind of facilitating or remaining neutral to anti-Christian violence, so when a lot of that violence has a direct impact on women and children, because women lose their husbands, women, lose their, maybe fields and farms, women get displaced. And so the disproportionate burden of any conflict, falls onto onto women, and women also become weapons of, or markers of, as markers of community honor, are also targeted for sexual violence and this thing. Now, also some of the positive things, I think it's also bringing a lot of people together. So this is a very interesting incitement. While this can be, can be quite, you can be quite, feel quite dark and depressed at times, it's also a period of great opportunity and hope, because it's also a time for reimagining a lot of things. And I think I've seen greater solidarity and people walking that extra mile, which probably they would not have done a few years ago, to come together, to work on issues, to forge solidarities, networks, and alliances, at least to so that is one important thing. You see young women and especially young women from marginalized communities who are also going into academics, and who are also at the forefront of activism and quite articulate. They've also been questioning feminist politics, and how feminist politics, like in the West, has been largely white dominated, and feminist politics in India, how it has been upper caste dominated, and the need for alternative voices, and the need for people from marginalized backgrounds and identities to reclaim spaces and to speak for themselves, and also to lead agendas and to lead change. So that has been also very good. And young women have also been, and young women have risked going to prison, risk being slapped with UAPA and sedition charges, when we have these two young girls who are so inspirational. I forget their names right now, but who were released, or you have people like Sudha Bharadwaj and others who have, risked so much, and who continue to risk in order to keep the idea of India as our founding mothers and fathers have dreamt of, in focus. So yeah, so these are something, governments, have to report, and I'm sure they'll all have very, quite a bit of, I mean, not necessarily only rhetorical, but a lot of factual information to project. But governments also want to hide data. The government of India has also been hiding data on femicide and violence against women, or trying to show that, it's kind of underplaying it. And that's another thing. And how, in Assam, we were also seeing, and in other parts of the country, that how issues like child marriages, which require not a legal approach, but which requires a lot of community investment and social approaches, are being used, and husbands are being arrested for marriages they committed, for marriages they did, say, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and now being imprisoned, and the men and the women are all adults now, are probably happy in these marriages, have children, but how laws are being basically used to kind of what you say, and policies used to target certain communities. Now in Assam, a lot of the child marriages would be, I mean, while you see it predominantly also, I mean, you also see it in the Hindu community, you would see it also largely among the Muslim community, because the Muslim community there is much more, backward than, say, in other parts, say in Kerala or in Kashmir. So child marriages and have to do a lot with poverty, illiteracy, insecurities, than people wanting to marry, just wanting to marry early for the sake of getting married early. Yeah, so these are some of the issues, and that I wanted to, and any which is true all over the world, any cuts in public spending, whether on education, on health, or whatever, is going to affect women and girls in more profound ways, because in normal circumstances, they have a kind of a back seat. Then when resources are limited, obviously the choice is in favor of the man and boy. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for all of that input, Brunel, on a variety of different areas as well. Is there anyone who would like to comment again or to respond to anything that you've heard from the others on this call? Introduced quite a variety of topics under the umbrella of gender equity. So if anyone would like to come back around and comment or add on to anyone else, you are welcome. Okay. There are no further comments. I'll just let everyone know, in addition to recording for us to be able to revisit this conversation later, among those who I'm having the privilege to work with in the space of the United Nations, I'm also been taking notes as you speak, and will look to keep all of these kind of priority concerns and kind of brightest spots of hope that you all have raised today. We'll try to take all of this into consideration as we engage both this week and beyond on the topic of gender equity. So thank you very much for that input. And if any further ideas come to you either later today as you think about this conversation or in the days to come, you would be most welcome to communicate those at any time. I think we're all probably connected by one WhatsApp group or another, but to be sure, I will also put my email address now in the chat box in case anyone would like to communicate that way going forward.
Yeah, so I just have one more point, because this was about Asia and Pacific. So what's happening in Afghanistan and the implications for Afghan women, and how international politics also, because these are nation states and governments who will be part of this entire exercise. So how their own role in, international politics can also compromise the lives and, dignity of women locally. So one is, of course, governments and societies and cultures of that country. But in the case of Afghanistan, say, the role that the US has played, Russia has played over a period of time, has all led to this kind of situation that we are right now, and the West. And of course, there are always internal factors also. I'm not saying it's one or the other, but we also need to look at what, how does international politics also influence, and the Rohingyas and refugees in Myanmar, the Rohingyas and Chin refugees. And again, when it comes to conflicts of any scale, women and girls are the most impacted. We have a number of Chin refugees and Rohingya refugees in India also. But these are the two that kind of come up, or in Pakistan, how blasphemy laws are also used against women. And the economic crisis in Sri Lanka, and what implications, it's a political and economic crisis in Sri Lanka, and the implication of that on women and girls. So that is also something that we need to take cognizance of. I mean, just something about Asia while we are part of this discussion.
Great. Thank you for
Just-
broadening us a little bit. And yes, Anita, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, since it's JCoR hosted meeting, when we look at the kind of marginalization of women across because of the state politics, that being largely Hindu right-wing, we should also be aware of the fact that all other religious hierarchies of leadership are also extremely patriarchal and right-wing, including the Christian and the Muslim. And so there is a kind of a tacit kind of understanding that this is the right way to go, even within the community leadership. So women's voices are being kind of targeted or silenced within the communities double. One from the government, which is right-wing and Hindu. But because we target the Hindu, we don't realize how much is happening internally within our own communities too. So unfortunately, the minority religious communities, women face a double-edged sword because they don't get relief from either the internal leadership or the government leadership. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. In fact, I was talking to someone yesterday and I was telling them, don't, while we're dealing with the Hindu right wing, let's not romanticize other religious minorities and communities, because patriarchy and the affinity for any kind of fundamentalist or leaning is there in all religion. I mean, and religion can be politicized across context and across traditions. Okay, here we are talking about the Hindu right, but elsewhere we could talk about the Muslim right, and we could talk about, I don't think there's any Christian, state as such, but yeah, countries with a Judaic-Christian heritage also speak a certain language of supremacy and of various kinds, and that also needs to be looked at. And actually today, while dealing with local and national issues, we are actually called to engage with politics across the globe, because trying to understand Hindu insecurity in India. Some of my friends have been saying, but they will turn around and say, but Muslims talk about minority rights in India, but what do they do in Bangladesh and Pakistan, okay, or in Afghanistan? And then and the Christians have, they think that the Christians have the entire West to go to, which is not really true. So this, in a globalized world where information is, kind of easily accessed, and with the world so small, even global politics are now determining national, issues in big ways.
Yeah, it's been quite tangible to see this kind of positioning of leadership when it comes to the women's issues. If it is a discrimination coming from outside, then there is the minority card played. Yeah. But if it's a discrimination from within, it's that we are, the targeted people, we are the minorities, we need to stay together. So women's voices are silenced any which way. So, and within the Christian women, if you look at Dalit and Adivasi women, they get even more targeted because they are more vulnerable. You're more vulnerable, it's easier to target you with violence. So this, as a community, we are not offering equal security to women, and certainly not to marginalized women within us. Stop there.
Excellent comments. Yes, I mean, so many themes brought up, which are certainly, you, as this group has raised, relevant across not only India, not only across the Asia Pacific region, but kind of global phenomena. Two things kind of repeating multiple times over, talking about kind of this concept of intersectionality. The idea that discrimination or disadvantage is kind of a layered phenomenon, and that people experience it very differently depending on how many layers of discrimination you're likely to be encountering. And further, that, you know, several times when people brought up rays of hope or bright spots on the horizon, this idea of being able to speak across those different groups that come with different layers or different types of experience, and especially across different generations, to help bridge some of these gaps. Some people mentioned they felt there was, even at the communal level at least, more gender equity even, you know, a generation ago than people experience at the communal level now. Which maybe, you know, is part of our globalization of both things good and bad. But, you know, we're definitely seeing patterns that holds across quite a tremendous geographic area. I also want to welcome Parina and Sister Archana, who have joined us in the last few minutes, and invite, if either of you would like to speak or share anything in response to what you've heard already from others, or if you'd like to respond in your own way. The two main kind of topics that we're addressing are, on the one hand, what we see as our deepest concerns in your country or community related to gender. And on the other hand, you're also invited to comment, if you wish, on anywhere you're seeing some progress or sign of hope related to gender. So if either of you wish to speak, please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Parina Jahid from Afghanistan. I recently came to USA after the collapse of Afghanistan. I just want to mention, as my sister from India, she mentioned some concern point about Afghanistan, but I want to just mention my point that somehow UN have a good policies about gender equality, but when we come to ground, it's totally different, because the UN staff somehow helping the Taliban to not hiring, especially with their partners, at the position that they are for women. They are not hiring women. Instead of that, they are hiring men at the position. How can we say that there is gender equality? Because they are supporting by themselves. It's very common thing in Afghanistan. They are giving high positions level. We have qualified women for that, but they are not giving to them because of the gender basis. You all know that situation is nowadays very bad, especially organization that women can work. It's UN, but UN also not doing good things. That's why it's very difficult for women in Afghanistan, and it's hopeless for them. And yesterday I talked with one of them. She mentioned to me this point, that please raise our voice, that we are in very difficult situation. You all know that we cannot work in other organizations, but UN also doing the same thing. When we ask them why you are doing this thing, they say that you know that Taliban is not giving you promotion to go to work at the outside. That's why we hiring men to work, and we are giving the low positions for you to just have an income. It's very bad thing for them, and they are just feeling bad. You all know that. Yeah. Thank you.
But can I just ask a question? I would like, it's really lovely to have you here with us, Parina. We're really happy that you could join. Can you share more about yourself so we know who you are?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, now I'm in, I live in Virginia, but in Afghanistan, I was working with a local organization. Our organization working for women education and girls and Noor Education and Capacity Development Organization. And also here I'm invited by WOLF Afghanistan section, Women International League for Peace and Freedom. And in USA, I'm not working now because you all know it's very difficult to get job in a year. I have degree of Afghanistan education. and I work in civil society of Afghanistan. It's almost 10 years as I start my my working career.
Karina, if you could share your email ID, we would be very happy to connect with you and also see how we can take forward some of this dialogue even through academic spaces in India.
Yes, sure. I can share my contact number and also my email address. Yeah.
Please
Thank
do
you
that.
so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
And
so
also
much.
this and also Mr. Souza, I know Hindi how to speak.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Okay. World is small, yes. So I'm looking forward to receiving your email ID and number on the chat.
Great, wonderful connection being made here. And Sister Archana, is there anything you might like to add or respond to? If you can hear us. Okay. So no further comment there. Any final word from anyone before we just have another short word of closing prayer?
Clara, I just want to add one more thing. We have started a house at the border of Burma, where we have got Myanmar.
Okay.
No, we have got almost now 90 girls in the hostel. Majority of them are purely Burmese, and always there is lot of tension because they are here already migrants. But we have created a good rapport with the army, so we are safe in the part of the education. But many of the children's parents are already they are already captured and put in the jail. So I request all of you, your valuable prayers for our people in Burma and the Myanmar, the border. Thank you so much.
The Jesuits are also working with the Chin refugees there in a big way. I think 45,000, Jyoti was saying.
Yeah, we do have also along with us, there is a Vincentian Fathers. They also have started a hostel. They have 140 of them. We have got 110 of them. And we have started a school also for them. And they mainly, they come to learn English. Once they go for holidays, they may not come back. So that's a new service we have started just month of January. So I am part of that also. So from here where I am, I have to travel every now and then 8 hours journey to reach to Myanmar border.
The distance can be long,
Tough work, Sister Philomena. Very tough work.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry, I take a leave of Clara because I need to attend to some patients. So we'll be in touch in the coming days. Thank you so much. Goodbye to all of you.
Very good. Thank you, Sister Philomena. And
Thank
for
you.
those who wish to have contact information, several people have shared in the chat box. So please visit the chat box to find means to connect with each other going forward.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, ma'am. All of you. Thank you so much.
Great.
Giving me opportunity.
Of course. And we'll just have our very, very short few words of closing.
I am outside, that's why just sometime not getting connection. I was inside, just range is not getting, so I came outside.
Oh, it's nice to see the sky. Yours is brighter than mine, even though it's morning here.
Yes, no, we are in the near close by jungle. We also have. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so to close, let us simply say, God, we look around us and we see that we are surely standing in the eye of a storm. The road to a world of gender justice stretches out long before us, too long before us. And yet, surely there is no way forward but to respond with humility, to love generously, to laugh out loud with delight in your presence, and to rejoice in the eye of the storm. Help us to blaze a clear path forward, especially for the women and girls who will follow us. Strengthen our hearts and our hands to do the work that hope requires. Amen. So thank you all once again for being here. Wonderful to be with you, to learn from you, and I look forward to continuing to connect in a variety of different ways as we continue down this road together. Have a good remainder of your evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Therese.
Thank you. Bye. See you all. Bye.